Hello, I'm the Artsy Crafter, and today I'm going to show you how to make these beautiful flowers for Mother's Day. You can make them out of tissue paper or out of coffee filters. My niece loved them so much, she even made one out of a magazine. So stay tuned and I'll show you how to put them together. Okay, step number one, let me show you the supplies that you'll need. Now in the file, I show you how to make them with tissue paper or with coffee filters. So if you get the tissue paper, all of these things, in fact, you can buy at a dollar store. So cone filters, they come this shape, doesn't matter the brand. I would suggest 2 or 3 per student. And then you need a stem for your flowers. Again, either a bendy straw or go to the dollar store and buy these long floral wires. Before you get to school, make sure you use your pliers at home and cut them in half, because students only need a piece about 8 inches long. And then if you use a bendy straw, you'll need regular tape. And if you use this crafting wire, you'll need the floral tape. This is the easiest. And to paint your flowers, of course, a set of paints and a paintbrush, a little spritzer to wet the coffee filter before you paint it. And then the final toothpick per student just to curl the edges of the flowers. So gather your supplies and come on back and I'll show you how to put them together. Step number 1, use the templates in your file as follows. 1 and 2 on one cone, and use the edges to cut out petals 3 and 4. And when you're cutting, you can easily cut out a couple cones at a time. All right, go cut and come on back. Okay, you're back, so it must mean you've cut out your templates, and I've got mine laid out here for you. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And remember, number 4 gets cut on that fold just to make things easier for you. 1 and 2 are shaped very similarly, 2 just slightly larger. So you cut out as many as you want. My suggestion is that you have a couple of each. So maybe take 2 of the cone filters and cut out your shapes. Now when I cut out some, look at all of the cone filter that I have left. And save that, because you can cut out some petals for your flowers if you're interested, okay? Or you can take those spare bits and just cut out some random really large shaped petals for your flower, and you can put those on at the very end, okay? So come on back when you're ready to go and have your little green stick ready with a piece of your floral tape. So I would suggest that each person roll off a piece that's about 2 feet long, and you can always use more, okay? All right, come back when you're ready. Okay, you're back. So let's talk about which product you're going to use. Now remember, if you're using the bendy straw, you don't have to do anything to the straw to prep it, but you'll have to use pieces of Scotch tape. So everybody should just tear off about 10 pieces of Scotch tape about this size and have it sitting at the edge of your desk ready to go. I think it's so much easier to use the stick, and so that's what I'm going to do, and it's so much easier to use that floral tape. So the way the floral tape works is that when you touch it, it's a little bit sticky, and what it does to adhere it to the stick, if you stretch it, that's how it's going to adhere. So all I do is hold it, a piece of the tape next to the tip of the stick, and then I pull on the tape, and I pull, and see how I stretch it? And as I stretch it, look at that piece almost fills the whole stick. And all I do then is twirl that stick around, help it a little bit, twirl, and keep pulling on that tape, and twirl the stick. And do you see that? Very quickly then you have a stick covered with floral tape. And the nice part about floral tape is if your fingers are strong enough, you can just tear it off. So your stick's ready to go. Come on back when you're ready to begin. Okay, you're back. So let's begin with petal number 1. Now petal number 1 we cut very close to the bottom of the cone. So when you go to open it, notice it's stuck. No big deal, just rip it open. And if yours rip apart, that's okay too. I try to make it easy on myself so I don't rip it completely. Now all you're going to do is take one end of the stick and come about halfway up this petal, and all you're going to do is very tightly hold on here to the bottom and just twirl that petal very tightly around the stick. So that's why I keep the two flower petals together, because look at that, I can just keep on twirling. Now if you decide that you're only going to have one petal number 1, then you're done. Either way, what you're going to do is take a piece of that tape and now adhere it very carefully to the stem. So come up about an inch and again hold it. Doesn't matter if you squish it with your fingers, but to see how I wrap it around 5 or 6 times, and then I come down the stem a little bit and rip it off. That one is so important to make sure it's stuck on there carefully, because without that being stuck on, your whole flower is going to fall apart. If you choose to do another number 1, let me show you again. All you're going to do again is rip it open. Again, don't rip it all the way. Now stagger. I finished this one here, so I'm going to start it so that's kind of overlapped. And I want the petals all to end at the same spot, so don't start moving down your stick. Stay close to the top, okay? And then just do another little twirl. And you see how this one gets a lot thicker very carefully. And as I twirl it around, again, I just try to make sure that that white coffee filter ends approximately at the same spot here. Now it's a mess down here, that's okay, because look at that. I'm going to take that green tape again and pull it and stretch it and squish it with your fingers, that's okay. And just wrap it around and come down the stick a bit. And if yours comes undone at the top like that, like mine did, that's okay too. Just keep wrapping it so it sticks in place, okay? So that's your first one done. I'll pause while you get caught up to me. All right, you're back. So let's start with number 2. Now number 2, very similar, only slightly bigger. So again, look where mine finished this time. I'm going to make sure that gets covered, ending the petals about the same point here, okay? So if you're really good at this, you can wrap it and take the second one. You could tape it if you wanted and wrap the second one. So that's number 2 in place. And again, I want you to take your green floral tape then and tape that onto the stem. Okay, number 3, let's get started on that one. So number 3, a little bit larger again, cover up that gap, and again, make sure that you're about at the same spot again. And this time, look at, you hardly get around with one of those petals. So you can tape that in place if you want, or you can take the second number 3 and wrap that one. So again, I just keep squishing right here, and if you think, gosh, my flower's going to look squished, don't worry about it, because all of that's going to get covered. Okay, so I put 2 on. I'm going to tape that again really well. So I'm going to wrap that tape around. And then I'll go down the stem a bit, so it's getting kind of thick there where I keep wrapping, and that's fine. And rip it off, and then do the same with number 4. You can decide how many number 4s you want to put on. Look at how nice that is. It's a nice big piece. So do the same thing, set that in place. Again, so those tips come slightly, maybe slightly above, but about the same spot. And then cover up the gap and wrap number 4. And come on back when you've got all your 3s and your 4s in place. Okay, you're back. So it must mean that you've got all your 3s and 4s in place. And like I said, if you're really keen, some of those large ones that I cut out a moment ago, if I wanted, I could put those in place now as well. But they're a little bit tricky because look, you have to overlap them a lot. So for now, I'm going to forgo that. All right, now the next step, make sure that you've put that green tape around, and again, it's really secure. So that first layer was really important, and that last layer is really important. And if you're like me, your fingers are a little bit sticky now. All right, that's okay. What you're going to do now very carefully is go through and open up your flower. Okay, so just very gently go around your flower and then peel back the petals. And you'll see that as your flower opens up, the closer you get to those 1s and 2s in the center, the harder it is to open. So do you see how when I open them, I kind of fold the petals back because I want to get them ready for painting, okay? So come on back when you've got all your petals peeled back. Okay, you're back. So if you were the person making these exact flowers out of the tissue paper like I suggested in the file, you're done and you're ready to give that special flower to a loved one. But if you're doing it with the coffee filters, now it's time for painting. So you can see I'm a watercolor painter. I have my paint and my brush ready to go. And I have some paper towel because it does get a little bit messy. So you have to think about where you're going to put this flower when it's done. So I have a little stand that I put it in. You can take anything that's in the classroom, but just make sure that you don't lay the flower down flat like that, because that, when it's wet, then is just going to deform some of your petals, okay? So have a plan as to where that's going to go to dry. So I suggest, I usually have a couple books on my shelf, and then I slide the stem between the books, and then it can sit like so, and let it dry overnight, and then you can come back tomorrow and I'll show you how to form the petals, okay? So to paint it, all I do is cup it in my hand, right? So cup it in my hand. I have a little mister, and what I do is just spray it a little bit just to get it going, because it's so much easier to paint. And then I have my paints ready here on my tray. And whatever color you decide to do, it doesn't matter. But look at that. Once you put the paint on and the filter is wet and your paints are nice and wet, do you see how easy it is to paint up your flower? And again, I would suggest that you try a couple different things. So I'm putting this red-orange color on my flower, and I'll just add a bunch here to the center. And then you might want to just switch it up a little bit. Take a lighter color, a darker color, it doesn't matter. I think no matter what you create, it will end up beautiful. So maybe just on the edges of some of the flower, put another little color. And then again, mix it up a little bit. Now, notice when I paint it, the only thing I'm going to do when I'm finished is paint the underside of the last row. But I don't have to paint the underside of all of my flower. Some people fill a little dish with paint and water, and then they dip the flower in. Well, you can imagine it's going to get a little bit messy. So a warning to the teachers, if that's what you decide to do, make sure every student has a piece of paper towel so that they can put the paper towel under the flower and place it then in the spot that they want to keep it. So you paint your flowers and then come on back when the flower is dry, and I'll show you how to finish it. Okay, you're back. So that means that everything's nice and dry and you're ready for the final step. Now, I didn't dip my flowers into a bowl of wet paint. I painted mine as you saw, and they took about 1.5 hours to dry. So last step, all you're going to do now is curve those edges of the flower back up, and then you can hand that to Mama like that. That makes a beautiful Mother's Day gift. Or you can kick it up a notch, and around the edges of the petal, use your toothpick and just roll the edges of the petal around that toothpick, okay? So that could be your final step. So again, if you wanted to make it with tissue paper or with funky scissors, that creates a really fun edge as well. So I hope you love your Mother's Day flowers, and happy crafting, and I'll see you soon.